All right, we're gonna call the general government committee meeting to order.
Make a motion on the agenda to approve.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the agenda? Not all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Carries. How about our minutes from January 9th meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Carries. Are there any public comments? We have an update regarding the IT policy.
Put that in
We're
presentation.
supposed to, there aren't any supervisors here not seated as committee members, are there? All right.
Good morning. I think I'm going to ask that Claire put a just presentation up to support my discussion today. If you go to the next slide, please.
Okay, thank you.
Back in January, I mentioned that we were working on a redrafting of the IT policy. I would just want to give you an update on where we stand with that. We can't exactly find a date on the last policy, but we think it's about a decade old. And if you just consider all the things that have changed since then, we've got cloud computing, we get at our business apps via our phone.
It's okay over here.
Yeah, okay. And then we've got these threats that didn't exist 10 years ago. You might have heard that one of the school systems in Minneapolis was just subject to ransomware last week. So a lot's changed, and we've got a lot of progress that has been made on a new IT policy. And I'm just going to kind of wave it at you. But you can pass these around. So this is our old one, or current one, and this is our draft. They're pretty robust. I mean, even the old one was about 35 pages long, which challenges our finance policy in terms of length. But this is important stuff. I'm going to try to simplify it for you a little bit. So there's really two audiences for one of these IT policies. There's the folks that work here, the employees, and supervisors, and others that come in contact with the business. Then there's the business itself, the IT department. So if you'd go to the next slide, Claire. And I apologize that these colors aren't particularly distinct. If you need a hard copy, I'll provide it. But about a fourth of the policy covers what would face employees. These are things like acceptable use policies for internet, what we can do and can't do with email, what's permissible for a company-owned cell phone, what we need to do to stay trained. So about a quarter of the updated policy will cover that. The other 3/4 is how IT itself runs. So if you look at this document, about this much is just recovering what was covered in the 10-year-old policy. All this is new. I'd say 40%. Change control, encryption management. We didn't even talk about encryption 10 years ago. Who are you and how can you access our systems? Kind of getting that ransomware protection. Overall information security, vulnerability management, and auditing. So Scott and his group are doing a lot of work to bring this policy up forward 10 years. We'll try to stay on top of it from now on. We anticipate having a draft for your consideration next month or in May. That's just my update on IT policy. Any questions about that?
So you're giving us the update on the Deer Park?
I could do that too, sir, if you like. We'll try to keep this quick. Next slide. So also stepping back to January, we made some decisions about how we would dispose of the Deer Park property. I just want to give you a brief update on that. I think this was called Deer Lake in one of your agendas, and I apologize for that. That was my error. But this is a couple of acres down in the southeast corner of the county. What we've decided to do is auction it with a minimum bid. And now we're in that phase where we're trying to figure out whether we own it or not. Tough to sell it if you don't own it. We have recently completed a title search, and we've identified that the people that we think owned it before it went into probate actually own it. So now we've got to work with council to get it through for us to become the inheritors of that actual property before we own it. I don't know if Malia or Joe is online and might have any comments on that. But we're still a ways off from being able to auction it.
So we did get a copy of the will, and it does appear that we are the owners, or we will be the owners. Now we just have to open that with Janelle Anderson's office, the registering probate, and then just work it through that system to clean the title and get a deed through that process.
Get the evaluation done. Is that their counter assessment?
No, we hired an independent appraisal on that, sir.
So that's an appraised value?
It is an appraised value, correct?
Yep, sounds good. Yeah, we went through that.
Any questions on that other than? And I've got the appraisal thing. I'd like to see it. If there aren't any questions, we'll move on.
All right. You're gonna review the cash flow.
So as we review financial policies, we realize there's some things perhaps we haven't been paying attention to that we ought to. And one of those is a cash flow analysis. So when the current financial policy specifies that once a year, the general government director will provide a cash flow analysis to the general government committee. And I'm providing today an initial update on that. So we have identified we couldn't find an actual cash flow analysis. Perhaps you as general government have seen one that predates me, but we were struggling to find something that the organization has done in the past. Not finding anything, we went to the Government Financial Officers Association and asked them to borrow one of their models. We've been putting our data into it. So if you, let me make a couple more points. What you're looking at now is only the general fund. It's basically the budget of the general fund. If you go over to the graph, I'll try to walk you through it. There's really just a couple of key things to keep in mind. The overall balance is here in the purple or gray, depending on your picture. The annual inflow is that dark black line. So from a budgeting perspective, that spikes in January. And then really our income, our revenue reduces from a budgeting perspective through the course of the year. Now, practically speaking, we get sales tax payments every month, but that goes to the treasurer. And that's actually the cash we have, not the budget we have. You're looking at the budget. From my perspective, the really important thing is we never get below 10 or $11 million. So we don't really have any liquidity problems. And that's what a cash flow analysis is really supposed to help us understand, is whether we've got any liquidity problems. And I'm not seeing any. And I made the joke earlier today, so far, no banks have failed in Wisconsin today. So I have asked Amanda to give us some insight into whether we have any risk with deposits. Most of a large fraction of our deposits are held. I've got our list right here. Denominations are $250,000 or less if they're CDs. Then the rest are in T-bills, so pretty secure. But just to be safe, I've asked Amanda to double check the work that I've got here. Right now, I'm not seeing any real risk. A cash flow analysis, generally speaking, takes out this curve 3 to 5 years. And in an Excel sheet, we have done that, but we've kept it super simple in terms of assumptions. So right now, we don't have any assumptions about inflation. So this curve looks the same for the next 4 years. That's unrealistic. So over time, we'll start to adjust that based on what we're seeing, get a closer picture of what's going on. The other thing that's not on this are sort of interesting events that might happen. So there's some discussion in the Wisconsin legislature of giving counties more money back from sales tax. This just models our current sales tax with no change. We should know about that here within a couple of months. I think Vince has brought that previously up at exec. Any questions? Yes.
It appears like you have peaks in the outflow in March and August. What, can you tell me what those peaks are?
I've identified those as well, and I've asked Amanda what they are, and I'm not exactly sure yet. Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry, Sherry. Amanda's the treasurer. Other questions about cash flow? This will be something we tune over time.
All right, if we're good on that, we have a discussion and possible action, resolution 1323. 23 budget.
So try to keep this super short. Why don't we go? So we got about $3 million worth of carryovers. What's a carryover? It's money that was allocated in a previous budget, not necessarily the most recent fiscal budget, but a previous budget for projects that we thought we would get done, but we didn't get them done. So we didn't spend the money. And so we're going to bring the money into the current fiscal year to try to get it spent, get those projects done. So why might that happen? Well, it can happen because we've got supply chain issues, because we've picked up too many projects. There's lots of reasons we might not spend the money in a particular fiscal year. I'm going to show you how it breaks down for across our division. So if you'll go to the next slide, Claire. The current carryover has about $2.5 million worth of facilities projects, about $250,000 for law enforcement, and the rest not particularly large amounts. So that just shows you that we picked up a lot of projects in a couple of areas here that we need to get done this next year. So this number here, 2.9, is the amount that's in the carryover resolution. We've had previous carryover resolutions as well. So let's go to the next slide. And Mo just asked about this. In a previous resolution, you've already brought over about 1.3 or $4 million to take care of PTAG projects. So the total amount of outstanding projects we have right now is about $4.2 million. So the goal is to get those done in 2023. If we don't, I'll be back up here this time next year asking for another rollover or carryover. Does that make sense?
So you're looking for a motion to forward this?
Yes, sir.
So move.
Second.
Any more discussion on the resolution? Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, how about our resolution 1423, cancellation of outstanding?
So this is a lot smaller number here, but we've got about $3.8 thousand, $3,800. We're going to ask you to basically write it off. So what is this? These are amounts due to checks we've written to folks and they haven't cashed them. And so from an auditing perspective, every 3 years, we want to write these off. Now, if Uncle Joe comes in 6 months from now and says, hey, you owe me $150, Amanda's going to stroke a check to him. This is just to clear our books now. It doesn't mean we wouldn't issue those refunds or whatever the money's for down the line, but it's just a write-off. It's relatively insignificant in terms of dollar amounts. And it is specified that we do this by Wisconsin statute. So I'd request that you.
Is this the list of names that we're looking at?
Yeah, I think there's an exhibit in there that's got the 3,800.
Here we go, yeah. I looked at that one. Yeah.
Looking for his name.
Right.
My name, but I didn't find it.
All right, we get a motion to get this one to the board.
I'll make a motion to move it.
Second.
Any more discussion? Not all's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries.
I'm going to sit down for a moment.
All right. We'll have resolution 1523. And to raise the entry level compensation for assistant attorneys.
That stuff. I don't even just move that far.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion required?
This is more or less just a recommendation of the state, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Lobbying, lobbying.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. How about resolution 1623 to approve a mid-year budget adjustment in law enforcement and land information?
So I can start with that, but the sheriff's here as well. So Claire, if you bring the PowerPoint back up very briefly. I think we've got a slide on this. If you go down a little bit more, yeah, one more. So we're asking for a little under $300,000 to move a project forward that's related to telecommunications here in the county. I'll let the sheriff address the specifics. I'll let you know where we'd like for it to come from. We've got right now about 4.25 million left in spendable within the general fund overall. Some of that is ARPA dollars. We're recommending that you take that 300 roughly out of this remaining balance, which would take us down below, a little bit below 4 million of spendable. We think this is a really good project. We need to do it anyway, and we're getting state funds for 3/4 of it. So it's a great deal for the county. I'll let the sheriff.
And that really is hard to top what Don just said. I don't really have much more to add, other than there's a mapping component as well to this with GIS, which is going to be handled through Bob's division, but this was a matching grant through the state to help us with this project that ultimately we would have to do anyway. So it's really a way to get a substantial discount how we do it.
So the 300,000, what does that get us? Is it IT stuff? Is it?
It's about
It's technology.
Technology.
It really is beyond what I even can comprehend as far as it's.
So it's not the actual, because I had a note here, because I was just at the Town of Eureka board meeting. They just voted to do the next gen 911 because Jason had sent a letter out. So they voted to do that, to use ARPA funds, their ARPA funds to do it. Because, you know, I told them eventually everybody's going to have to do it anyway.
Right.
And they were asking, will the county kick in any money on this and stuff, of course. But, so I didn't know what this actually entailed.
about 30,000 is software and the rest is hardware. And then Bob's group in ES is going to manage the software side of it.
Okay,
I will point out too, the reason it wasn't in the last year's budget is we thought the chances of getting the grant were pretty much zero. 72 counties fighting for 6 million or something. So there were really only 7 or 8 or 9 awards, and Polk got one of the awards, and it was sort of like, wow, fell in our lap. Must be really good grant writers over there. But you know, it's sort of almost $750,000 of free money to get a project done that we otherwise need to get done. So
that's great.
So it is a big benefit to the county, and like you say, technology is expensive, unfortunately. So this at least chips into that cost.
You know what would be helpful with that? Yes, the whole project on this, because as I go to the different town meetings, people always have questions about if I had a cheat sheet that I could go to, because I'm not the expert in it. And I hate to always say, I don't know, I need to check with Jason, I need this. I'll talk to him about it, because it's what are the benefits? What's the next steps for us? That kind of thing. And maybe they've already been told some of that, but they forget or whatever, but it would be nice for us to know more about it.
On next gen 911.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, can we get a motion on this to move it forward?
I'll make
Go ahead.
a motion that we do that.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Carries. How about resolution 1823? Must be some errors in the 2022 resolution numbers.
I'll make a motion that we approve that, send it to the board.
Second.
Any discussion on it? Favor?
Aye.
Carries. How about our work plan? Good on our work plan?
In our
got
packet,
another
we've got another thing,
Another resolution.
27.
Aye.
No, that's just the information of what we're changing the numbering to from the
Oh.
27 on the stormwater. It's going to
Okay.
5022. That number was missed and there was a double number. So that's the one that we're fixing with that resolution of the scrivener's error.
Gotcha.
Fireworks.
So I'll try to bring us home on this. Let's go to the last page of your packet. There's an update on the General Government Committee work plan. Looks like I owe you a budget calendar. Doesn't look like a calendar like it has in the past. So we're finding it hard to get all the information on something that looks like a calendar. But this is just a laundry list of everything that has to happen before that day in November when you approve the budget. And you'll see it's broken out color-wise for things that are up to you to do. And those are in the orange. And then what we're doing on the staff side. So we're already in motion on the budget. We're asking departments and divisions to evaluate their programs and really think hard about how a department or division might quantify the goods, services, and products that it delivers. So, and general government division is willing to help departments with that. I'm not going to read through the whole list, but one of the things that you can expect from us coming up is a preview of what we see with the budget sometime in May. So I mentioned that the governor's budget, biennial budget's moving through. We don't know where it's going to end up, but there could be some really important information for counties in that budget. The budget doesn't take effect till July 1, which in some ways is kind of late for us to be thinking about really big changes, like an increase in sales tax revenue. So we're going to, in all likelihood, have to model a couple of different budget scenarios. One is sort of steady state, where there's no real increase in revenue, and that's going to be tough, or another scenario where we get a little bit more sales tax. So this is going to be a little bit of an interesting year because of what the governor is proposing. And I don't know if council wants to comment on it. I think Malia was down in Madison when there was some discussion about this, but if you feel like talking about it, Malia. I don't know.
Sure. So I went down to the Wisconsin Counties Association Legislative Conference a couple of weeks ago, and there were the governor was there, leaders from the assembly were there, leaders from both houses actually, and everyone on both sides of the aisle was pretty much in unison saying that they don't see any roadblocks to the portions of the governor's budget that restore shared revenue and that restore the shared cost for the filing fees that go to the Register of Deeds. So all of that seemed very positive as far as, changing how there's funding for local governments and counties specifically. So that's, I left there feeling cautiously optimistic.
Caution
Yeah.
is the word.
Got that.
Well, and we have to be prudent, even if there are exceedingly prudent, even if there are additional resources. So that's my commitment to you all. I just want to draw out one other item on this calendar, and that's we've sort of got some conflicting information. Old budget calendars every other year had the beginning of WPPA contract negotiations starting in June. When we look at the actual contract, it suggests that the negotiations really don't start till August. So I'm looking at working with Malia to get some clarity on that. Russ, you may have some memory of this, but it is a WPPA contract year. So from a budgeting perspective, if it turns out that the negotiation's rather late in the game, we'll just model a couple of different scenarios in terms of budgets, so we can try to, capture what might likely happen. But that's another one of those variables that we don't really have much control over, at least not right now, in terms of thinking about the budget. I'll keep you aware of that. As negotiations start, we'll learn more. Any questions about our work plan?
Great. How about subject matters for our next meeting?
I have a couple possible ones if I could take just a quick second. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we got you.
And Sheriff Walk, this is in relation to what I'm about to talk about. I think you have a relatively new deputy. I don't know the last name, but Seth.
Oh, yes, Deputy Seth Peterson.
I just wanted to let you know, ran into him bringing our daughters to gymnastics in Osceola and watching him interact with the kids there when they saw his badge and stuff like that. You got a huge shining representation from that guy. It was so cool to watch him with the families and stuff like that. So just to let you know, he's a pretty good person to have out in the community like that. Not that anybody isn't, but just wanted to let you know about him.
Thank you. In a shallow pool of employees, we seem to find the really good ones. So I'm pleased to hear that, because we often only hear the negative stuff. So thank you.
And with that said, then with the Wisconsin Counties Association, that monthly publication that they send out to us, it was all focused on recruitment and retention for law enforcement and the needs there. I'm wondering, and again, still being relatively new to all these processes, like if we can just put that on the agenda for the next discussion to see where we're at with some of the things that we do and some opportunities that we might have to help out. Because looking again, it looks like we still have open patrol positions. And I learned a lot going through that Wisconsin Counties, that their newest publication that they sent out, just about some of the shortfalls and some of the things that they've been looking at as ways to bump up recruitment, but I don't know what we do. So if we could have, I don't know if you would want to do, but I'll give an example. One of the things was talking about protective status in the Wisconsin retirement system for jailers. Like, I don't know how we treat that or anything, like if that's even an option for us to look at, or so I don't know if this is the place to do that, but if we could have a discussion around that.
Put it on the agenda, minimum and. how
Just
much-
recruitment and retention for law enforcement.
And I'm really optimistic with our new HR person as well, our new
Okay.
HR.
So, and then maybe just for our peace of mind, then maybe, just give us a quick little blurb about why we should be optimistic then.
All right, any other items?
I got one more then, for the recreation center committee that got tossed over to EDC. I'd like to just give an update on what's going on there really quickly for April's meeting.
All right.
Okay.
Well, it looked like we had a lot of items here today, but we have one item left and
A minute.
we probably should. Probably should wait at least 1 minute.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Vince, what, sorry.